I've got a batch of dinner rolls here, and they might look unassuming, but don't be fooled. There's a lot going on here that makes them special, better than your average dinner roll. It's the platonic ideal of a dinner roll. It's got this beautiful golden brown crust. It's thin, it's tender, and when you rip it open, it's flaky. Rolls aren't often flaky, but these rolls are. It's airy, billowy, and tastes delicious. How do we achieve bread like this? Let's talk Tangzhong. So a Tangzhong, or a water roux, at first glance is kind of underwhelming. It's just a paste of water and flour that you've cooked for a couple of minutes. But if you've used it properly, the final result, it's just incredible. In order to do that, though, we need to understand just a few bread basics. Bread is composed of flour and water and a couple other things, but we really want to look at those first two items. When we talk about flour, we're really focused on its protein content, and that protein content is really important. Proteins provide the structure for bread. So when you make bread, you combine the flour and water and you knead it. And during that kneading, you're encouraging the two proteins, glutenin and gliadin, to interlink and form a gluten network. That gluten network, it provides structure. It traps air bubbles that when you go to bake the bread, inflate, and that's what helps bread rise. The other key component is starch. It absorbs water and it provides structure and tenderness in the baked bread. Here's the thing though, you can actually change the way you incorporate the water and flour into a bread. That's what we're doing with the Tangzhong. It's not a new concept. It's been done in Japan for centuries. It's been done in Europe as well. What is new, though, is the term Tangzhong. It was coined by Yvonne Chen and popularized in her book, 65 Degrees Celsius Bread Doctor. Here, you take a portion of the flour and a portion of the water in a bread dough, cook them together, and this technique has repercussions for the entire bread baking process, from the ingredient choice to the way the dough comes together to the shaping technique. So if you want to try to use a Tangzhong at home, here's what you need to know. You're going to use 5 to 10% of your total flour for the Tangzhong. You'll take the weight of that flour, multiply by 5, and that'll give you the amount of water you'll need to remove from your bread recipe to make the Tangzhong. In a pot on the stove, it takes 2 to 4 minutes. You want to keep the heat moderate and stir a lot. In a microwave, it goes a lot faster, maybe just 1 or 2 minutes. You're just looking for everything to gel. After it's cooked and cooled, work it into your dough and bake. What you can do if you want, though, is to add more liquid. You can add more water, you can add more oil, butter, fat, eggs. That will give you a bread with a softer crumb, and that bread will stale a little bit more slowly. Let's see it in action. So I have a Tangzhong here. It's just off the stove and very hot. Because it is super hot, I actually want to work with it carefully, introducing something like yeast, which is super heat sensitive. Something this hot would kill the yeast. And there are recipes where you would be instructed to let this cool. I'm going to actually do something else here. I'm going to add milk. This gets us to one of the other reasons Tangzhongs are great. Because I've taken some of that water and stashed it in the starch of the flour, I can actually use extra liquid in this dough in order to get a bread that's extra moist and extra soft. I'm just going to whisk this in. This milk is going to cool this mixture to something that our yeast can handle. And milk isn't the only ingredient you could add if you were making a different recipe. You might want to add extra oil, extra butter, maybe extra egg. Next up, I've got the flour to turn this into a bread dough and some yeast. And that's it. That's how you mix a Tangzhong into a bread dough. Next up, let's get our hands in some Tangzhong dough. When you have a Tangzhong, cooking some of that flour and water together, what happens is you've taken the protein in that flour and sidelined it. It's no longer available for gluten formation, so you kind of have to make up for it. We're going to work with Andrea Geary's Fluffy Dinner Rolls recipe to see how you would do that. So I've got a lightly floured counter here, and I'm just going to transfer the risen dough to the counter. And I'm pressing it out into approximately, and by approximately, I mean exactly, I'm going to dig out a ruler any minute now, into an 8 by 9 inch rectangle. I'm just going to kind of press out any of the bigger air bubbles in here. They will get bigger when we bake, and we don't want giant holes in our dinner rolls. Let's see how I did. 8. You guys, I nailed it. Now, this recipe makes 12 dinner rolls. I'm going to portion this dough into 12 pieces. One way to give bread extra structure is in the shaping technique. With this dough, what I want to do is stretch it, and I'm actually pressing out any of the large air bubbles into a 2 by 8 inch strip, and then roll it up into a cylinder. And that rolling action builds in extra structure, which helps the rolls rise nice and tall. And so I just get slightly shapelier rolls. So as you can see, I've got these rolls tightly nestled together in a 9-inch cake pan instead of spread out onto a rimmed baking sheet, and that's on purpose. That structure we built into these rolls with that shaping method, it helps them to not spread as they rise, but putting them in a pan with tall sides so that they are smushed together, nestling them next to each other so that when they expand as they proof, they expand up instead of out, will give these rolls some nice height. So I'm going to cover these and let them rise. They will double in size in about 45 minutes to an hour, then I'll bake them off. So now that we've seen a Tangzhong in our fluffy dinner rolls recipe, let's check it out in a different dough. So a Tangzhong is often used to incorporate extra water into a dough, but that's not the only way it can be used. I've got a challah dough here, well, 2 challah doughs here. Challah has a beautiful, tender, fine crumb and a really delicate crust, and it has that because it's really enriched. It's got eggs and it's got oil, and all of that extra liquid can make the dough kind of soft, a little sticky, difficult to braid. That's where a Tangzhong comes in. So these are 2 challah doughs that were made in a stand mixer, and this one has a Tangzhong. You can see that it's nice and firm and tight, really easy to handle. And this one, same dough, same ingredients, same proportions, but without that Tangzhong. So this dough is a little bit softer, it's a little bit tackier, and it stretches really easily. And that stretchiness is not ideal because when you're braiding a bread, you want those ropes to stay the same length. You don't want one of them to get super long, it gets awkward. This Tangzhong dough is it's firmer, it'll just be a lot easier to work with. This gets covered loosely with plastic wrap. It's going to expand quite a bit. I don't want to limit that expansion by wrapping tightly. It takes about 3 hours to proof, and then I'll bake it off. If you don't feel like doing a round, there's actually a longer braid that's also gorgeous. Another benefit that Tangzhong brings to bread is that it slows staling. So I have rolls that were baked yesterday. This was baked without a Tangzhong. You can kind of see it's not as fluffy and light as it could be. It's holding on to depressions and not springing back. And it feels, well, you can't feel this, but I can. It feels dry. It's a little bit firmer and harder than you'd want in a roll. This was made with a Tangzhong. It's still elastic, it's still fluffy, it's still tender, and you still want to eat it. Staling isn't actually always bad. When you take freshly baked bread out of the oven and let it rest, what's happening there is the bread is staling. This is what bread looks like if you could zoom in on it when it comes out of the oven. Okay, sorta. What we've got here are water molecules and starch molecules. And over time, as that bread rests, some of those starch molecules are going to migrate together, and as they do, they'll form crystals that will trap some water. We perceive this as a firming up of the bread, and that's good. It makes the bread firm enough to slice cleanly without compressing. But if you wait 2 days, say, the remaining starch crystals will also link up. And as they do, they trap even more water. That bread will then feel kind of dry, a little hard, a little crusty, much less desirable. When you make a Tangzhong, you've introduced so much extra water, there's enough free water available to keep that bread nice and moist even after crystals start to form, so you end up with something soft and fluffy after a couple days. Tangzhongs are great for a certain style of bread. You're not going to want to use it if you're making a sourdough, a ciabatta, something that's airy and chewy with a thick crust. Breads that are great for this method are fine crumbed breads with a tender crust, a challah or a sandwich bread, dinner rolls, or my favorite, sticky buns. These are Andrea Geary's sticky buns. They're airy, they're fluffy, and super sticky, just slightly sweetened. So if the idea of a fluffy and tender bread with a really long shelf life is appealing to you, you've got to try a Tangzhong. It's a simple and effective technique that all bread lovers should have in their arsenal. Have I inspired you to try a Tangzhong? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like this video and subscribe, and check out cooksillustrated.com for more great recipes and techniques.